Hello Year 5, welcome to your Thursday tutorial for week 8, and this is for the blue and green groups. Today, can I explore what makes a good narrative? So by now, you should be very familiar with different aspects of the story of Hercules and what he has done so far and what different elements fit in to make up part of his trials. So today we're going to explore my 13th trial of Hercules, which might feature a character that some of you know. So before we get started, I'm going to read it to you. Hera summoned Hercules to kneel before her as she sat on a cold, iron throne situated in the middle of the great hall. Hercules felt his stomach tighten as a knowing smile spread across Hera's menacing face. Surely she couldn't give him another trial. He tried to shake the thought from his head, but within minutes his fate had been decided. In order to complete his 13th trial, Hercules, who was unsure he'd be able to handle any more monsters, walked along dry, dusty roads in the desert, climbed breathtakingly high mountains, and sailed majestic seas. The cave he was searching for was built into the muddy, brown rock of the cliff. The stone guarding the entrance was jagged and uneven, arranged in such a way that it would be difficult for passers-by to spot. He had one aim: to find Medusa. Medusa was a hideous creature, with claw-like hands and tusks for teeth. The monster was the most fearsome in the land. Instead of hair, Medusa had live, venomous snakes that hissed constantly. Her skin had a loathsome greenish tinge, and she had eyes more evil than a devil's. She was the loneliest and most miserable creature that ever lived. Anyone who made eye contact with her would instantly be turned to stone. Knowing that he was facing an impossible mission, Hercules, who had normally feared nothing, prayed to Athena for help. Surprisingly, the gods heard his prayers and granted him an array of gifts. These were a razor-sharp sword, a brightly polished shield, and a sack for the monster's head. Hercules, who was now feeling more confident about his quest, set off. After a long and difficult journey, Hercules eventually arrived at Medusa's gloomy, death-filled lair. Courageously, he tiptoed to the entrance and stopped, peering and listening. A wave of terror rushed over him. All around him were stone statues of others who had tried and failed to defeat the hideous Gorgon. How could he defeat a creature that he could not even directly look at? Suddenly an idea came to him. He remembered the gifts from the gods. He crept into the open and confronted his foe. As she turned around, he raised his shield. Medusa realized the shield was reflective and wailed in anger. She was distracted. Hercules was able to get closer. Before Medusa could formulate a new plan, Hercules was able to swing his impressive sword and remove her head. With a sigh of relief, he collected the head of his foe. Positioning the head in the sack, Hercules headed to confront the evil queen. He had much time to think about how to defeat her and finish the trials once and for all. Again, he climbed breathtakingly high mountains, sailed majestic seas, and walked along dusty, dry roads in the desert. On his return, a bewildered Hera demanded to see the head. Hercules carefully opened the sack, and Hera gazed deeply into the Gorgon's eyes. In an instant, she was turned to stone. Hercules had succeeded in his final mission. So your first task is to analyse my 13th trial and to put into your story mountain here what happens in the opening, what happens in the build-up, what happens in the climax of this story, what the resolution is, and what happens at the end of my 13th trial. Now you'll notice that there are only 4 paragraphs, but there are 5 sections. So the sections might overlap paragraphs, which is fine, but you just need to think. If this were me, I'd probably just be bullet pointing. So for example, in the first bit of the opening, Hercules goes to Hera. So you can pause the video now and take your time to fill this in order to really understand sort of what happens in my 13th trial, so that tomorrow you can plan your own. Once you've done that, we are going to be moving into our expanding grids. Now, our expanding grids exist to help us when we are writing already have vocabulary and descriptive sentences at our disposal. Now, last time we did this, I was a little disappointed that some people only wrote 1 or 2 things in each box, and that's not what this is about, because there is a lot of content that is very easily available in the Waggle to Magpie. And not only that, you could include things from the clips you've listened to and include your sentences that you might have previously written. So let's start off with the purpose. The purpose of our writing is always to entertain, to persuade, or to inform. And as we are writing a narrative, a story, we are going to be entertaining, what effect are we going to have on our reader? When my reader reads my story, how do I want them to feel? Now, I'm going to give you one example, but I suggest you then pause the video and think of another 3 or 4 feelings that you want your reader to feel when they read. So the first thing I want to do is I would like my reader to feel a sense of wonder. It's an ancient place with gods, so I want them to feel wonder. So you can pause the video now, and I'd like you to fill in this effect box with another 3 or 4 examples of how you want your reader to feel when they read yours, but also you can take from that how you felt as I read to you previously. So vocabulary. What words were contained within these paragraphs that made you feel those emotions? So if we take my wonder, for example, there's a phrase here, stomach tighten. That makes me feel, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen next. So it can be words, but it can also be phrases. So I've got stomach tighten. What else makes me think, wow? Well, I like all of these. Dry, dusty roads in the desert, breathtakingly high mountains, and majestic seas. So I'm going to write them in because they make me feel wonder. They make me feel a sense of amazement at the place they're in. So it was dusty, dry roads, majestic seas. Okay, now it's your time to pause the video again and make sure that you fill this box with words or phrases that are really good, that you could magpie in your own writing, and that have the effects that you have previously written on. There are so many within there, this box can quite easily be filled. Okay, hopefully you've done that by now. And you are ready to move on to your descriptive sentences. So I've changed this from grammar for you to magpie whole sentences. that you like. So my first sentence that I really like is this one down here. He had one aim: to find Medusa. That's really, really powerful. It's quite short. And I know it's not quite descriptive, but it is one that I really want to magpie. He had one aim: to find Medusa. And then if you decided perhaps to do a minotaur or a different creature for yours, you could very easily manipulate this in your writing when you do it next week. So description. When I'm looking for description, I'm looking for things like expanded noun phrases. I'm looking for really good phrases with adjectives. So another example might be sat on the cold iron throne in the middle of the great hall. That is a descriptive sentence because I'm taking the throne I've described it, cold iron, and I've also told you where it is. So that is an expanded noun phrase. So your next part of this task is to go through and fill this section with the description and the descriptive sentences that you like and you think would be helpful for you in your writing. And then finally, as a challenge, grammar that you want to include, just to prove that you are understanding. So we have 3 main things that we add to move our stories on. And I'm going to just write ADD, because those are the letters that they start with, to see who can remember them. These 3 things exist to move a story on. You need this, I'll give you a clue, things happening, people talking, and telling me what things look, smell, feel, taste like. Those 3 things to move it on. What person is it going to be written in? First, second, third? You might also want to tell me what tense it's going to be in. And if you're not sure, you can very easily go back and reread or re-listen to me reading sections. We've said that we need something here. To do that, we need, there's another clue, something P's. You might also want a couple of these. You also looked at some things last week, beginning with a P that you might use. So, by the end of this session, you should have analysed the elements of my story, and you should have all the sections filled in fully, because the fuller this is, the more it's going to help you with your writing next week. That's all from me today, and I really look forward to seeing the results of all your hard work.